Moving into my new apartment felt like a fresh start. The building was old, with creaky wooden floors and antique fixtures, but it had charm. My favorite part? The bathroom. It had an elegant clawfoot tub and an enormous mirror above the sink. The moment I stepped inside, though, I felt watched. The first strange thing happened my second night there. I had just finished brushing my teeth when I caught movement in the mirror. Just a flicker, like a shadow passing behind me. I turned quickly, but there was nothing, just my shower curtain, still and unmoving. I shook it off. Maybe I was just tired. The radic and the steam. A week later, I took a hot shower and stepped out to find something chilling. Words written in the condensation on the mirror. I hadn't written them, and I lived alone. Hello. The letters dripped slightly as if they'd been written just moments ago. My heart pounded as I wiped the mirror with a towel, forcing myself to rationalize it. Maybe leftover residue from a previous tenant? Maybe I had accidentally smeared the steam myself? But then it happened again, and again. Different messages appeared. I see you. Don't look away. Help me. At that point, I stopped using the mirror entirely. I covered it with a towel, refusing to acknowledge whatever was happening. But that only made things worse. The shadow in the reflection. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard a sound from the bathroom. A soft, rhythmic tapping. I froze. The tapping grew louder, like fingernails scraping against the glass. I grabbed my phone and hesitantly stepped toward the door, pushing it open just a crack. The towel covering the mirror had fallen to the floor, and in the reflection, a dark shape. Tall, humanoid, standing in the bathtub. I turned to look directly at the tub. Empty. But in the mirror, the figure remained, standing motionless. My breath caught in my throat. Slowly, its head tilted, as if acknowledging that I saw it. Then, the lights flickered and the reflection lurched forward. I screamed, stumbling backward, knocking over a lamp in the process. The moment I turned away from the mirror, the bathroom door slammed shut. I ran. The research. The next day I left my apartment and went to a coffee shop, too afraid to be alone in my own home. My hands shook as I typed my building's address into a search engine. That's when I found it. Decades ago, a woman named Evelyn Morgan had lived in my unit. She had been found dead in the bathroom. In the bathtub. Cause of death? Suicide. She had used a shard of the very same mirror to end her life. The apartment had changed hands several times since then, with reports of tenants moving out within months. Some had reported whispers in the bathroom. Others had said the mirror fogged up on its own, even when the shower wasn't running. And one woman? She had claimed to see someone standing behind her reflection. I knew I had to leave, but I had nowhere else to go. I convinced myself I'd just avoid the bathroom mirror, use my phone's camera if I needed to check my reflection. But that night, something wanted to be seen. I woke up to the sound of running water. Groggy, I sat up in bed, blinking at the darkness. The bathroom door was open, steam billowing out into my room. Nope. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and forced myself to get up. As I stepped into the hallway, my feet hit something wet. The carpet was soaked. My pulse thundered in my ears as I reached the bathroom doorway. The bathtub was full. The water was dark, inky, black, like something had been mixed into it. I swallowed hard and reached for the faucet. As my fingers brushed against the handle, the mirror cracked. Not a little crack, a massive fracture that split it from top to bottom. And standing in the middle of that shattered reflection, Evelyn. Her hollow eyes locked onto mine, her mouth twisted open, too wide, stretching unnaturally. The moment I blinked, she was behind me. I didn't think. I ran, grabbed my keys, and left the apartment forever. I moved out the next day, breaking my lease. I didn't care. I didn't go back for my things. To this day, I refuse to have a large mirror in my home. Because some reflections don't just show your image. Sometimes they watch. You don't really think much about bathrooms, do you? They're just there, a necessity, a mindless, routine part of life. But I can tell you this, I will never use a public restroom alone again. Not after what happened to me at the old university library. It started with a storm. I was a graduate student back then, spending late nights in the dimly lit university library. The building was old, over 100 years, with the kind of history that made it feel alive. It had high ceilings, intricate wooden carvings, and bookshelves that towered over you like silent sentinels. But there was one place I always avoided, the restroom at the end of the hall on the 3rd floor. Something about it just felt wrong. The library had other restrooms, but that particular one was different. The walls were lined with old, stained tiles, the kind that always looked wet, even when they weren't. The fluorescent lights flickered like they were struggling to stay awake, casting shadows that moved in unnatural ways. And the worst part? The eerie silence. The air was thick in there, as if something was waiting. But that night I didn't have a choice. The storm outside was relentless, howling through the ancient window panes and rattling the glass. I was alone on the 3rd floor, deep in research, when the pressure in my bladder became unbearable. The elevator was shut down after 10 p.m., and I didn't feel like taking the long walk down to the lower floors in the dark. So, against my better judgment, I went to the 3rd floor restroom. The second I stepped inside, a chill crawled up my spine. Something was off. The air was damp, humid in a way that made my skin prickle. The room smelled faintly of mildew, mixed with something metallic, something rotting. I shook off the unease and entered a stall, shutting the door behind me. Then the lights flickered again. A long, painful flicker that left me in complete darkness for just a second too long. When they came back on, I heard a shuffling sound, slow and deliberate, like someone dragging their feet across the tile. I wasn't alone. "Hello?" I called, my voice barely above a whisper. No response. I held my breath and listened. The sound had stopped. Maybe it had just been the pipes groaning, or my paranoia getting the best of me. I finished quickly, trying to ignore the suffocating feeling that someone was standing just outside my stall. Then the water turned on by itself. The sink, directly across from me, began gushing water, the sound echoing in the empty restroom. My stomach dropped. There was no one else in there. The motion sensors were old and unreliable. I had waved my hands in front of them plenty of times before, only for nothing to happen. But now, the faucet was running full blast. A slow creaking sound followed. I turned my head toward the noise, and my blood ran cold. The stall door at the far end of the restroom was swinging open, by itself. I wasn't sure what was worse, the door moving on its own, or the fact that I saw nothing inside, just pure darkness, a gaping void where the stall should have been. I forced myself to move, yanking the stall door open and stepping out into the main area. The sink was still running, and the open stall was right in my line of sight. The door slowly, painfully creaked back shut. Then I heard breathing. Not my own. Shallow, raspy breathing coming from inside that stall. I bolted. I didn't care if my bag was still at the study table or that my laptop was sitting open, unsupervised. I sprinted down the hall, my footsteps echoing against the cold floors until I reached the 2nd floor common area where a security guard was making his rounds. "Whoa, kid, you okay?" he asked, eyeing my pale face and heaving chest. I turned back toward the stairs, half expecting to see someone standing at the top, peering down at me. But there was nothing. I explained, quickly and shakily, what had just happened. The guard listened, his expression unreadable. When I was done, he exhaled through his nose and nodded. "You used the 3rd floor restroom, didn't you?" I nodded. He rubbed the back of his neck and let out a sigh. "You're not the first one." My stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" He hesitated for a moment, then leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "Years ago, a student went missing in that library. A girl. She used to study late, just like you. One night, she went to that same restroom and never came out. A cold wave of dread washed over me. They never found her? Not a trace. The guard shifted uncomfortably. The cameras didn't catch anything. She just disappeared. Some people say she never really left. I stared at him, my mind racing. It sounded impossible, and yet I knew what I had heard, what I had seen. He clapped a hand on my shoulder, his face grim. Do yourself a favor. Stick to the first floor bathrooms from now on. I never stepped foot in that restroom again. Even during the day, even when other students were around, I refused to go near it. And to this day, I still wonder what would have happened if I had looked inside that last stall. I used to work the night shift at a small 24-hour gas station off the highway. It wasn't a busy place, mostly truckers stopping in for coffee and a bathroom break. It was the kind of place where you could hear the hum of the refrigerators at night, where the security cameras flickered for no reason, and where the fluorescent lights buzzed like a nest of angry bees. But the worst part was the bathroom. It was a single-stall restroom tucked away in the corner of the store. The door was old, the paint peeling, and it had this heavy metal lock that clanked too loudly every time someone used it. Customers would often come out looking uncomfortable, like they had just walked into something they weren't supposed to see. At first, I thought it was just bad plumbing, but then I started noticing things. It started with the mirror. Every time I went in to clean, I'd feel like the mirror was off, like the reflection wasn't quite right. I don't mean something obvious, just small things. I'd lift my hand and the movement in the reflection would feel a fraction of a second too slow. Or I'd turn to leave, but I'd swear my reflection didn't move at the same time. One night, after cleaning up, I flicked the light switch off and started walking out, but I caught something in the mirror out of the corner of my eye. Something was still there. It wasn't me. I turned the light back on so fast I almost broke the switch, but the mirror was normal again, just my reflection, looking pale and confused. I laughed it off, convinced I was imagining things, but that was the last time I felt safe in that bathroom. One night, around 3 a.m., I was restocking shelves when I heard the bathroom door slam shut. I hadn't seen anyone come in. I glanced at the security cameras. No one was near the restroom. Then the knocking started. Not a normal knock. It was slow, deliberate. Tap, 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 like someone drumming their fingers against the door. I grabbed the store keys and walked over, knocking back. Hey, is someone in there? Silence. Then I heard it. The sink turning on by itself. The sound of water running filled the quiet store. My stomach turned ice cold. I pushed the door open, expecting to see a homeless person or some prankster messing with me. But the bathroom was empty. The faucet was running full blast, the air inside damp and cold. And the mirror? God, the mirror. There was a handprint on the glass. But it wasn't a normal handprint, it was too big. The fingers were long, thin, stretched beyond human proportions, and worse, it was on the wrong side of the glass, like something had pressed its hand from the inside. I wiped it off with a paper towel, locked the bathroom, and pretended it never happened. A few nights later, I had a new coworker, Jeff, covering the shift with me. I hadn't told him anything about the bathroom. I figured if something was going on, I didn't want to scare him off. Around 4 a.m., Jeff went to use the restroom. Not even a minute later, I heard him scream. Not just a startled yell, a full-on gut-wrenching scream. I ran to the door, yanking on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. It was like someone was holding it shut from the inside. Jeff was still screaming. Then the lights inside the bathroom started flickering violently. And then, silence. The door unlocked by itself. I swung it open and found Jeff huddled in the corner, pale as death, staring at the mirror. His hands were shaking. I looked at the mirror. expecting to see another handprint, but there was something worse. A crack had formed right down the center, and behind the crack, in the warped reflection, something was standing behind us. Tall, shadowy, grinning. Jeff quit the next day. A week later, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was wrong with that mirror. At the end of my shift, I went into the bathroom with a hammer. I don't know what I expected, that maybe if I shattered the glass, whatever was inside would be gone. I took a deep breath, and I swung. The mirror exploded into 1,000 shards, and the second it shattered, the lights in the entire gas station went out. I stood there in pitch-black darkness, my breathing ragged. Then I heard it, from inside the broken frame of the mirror, whispering, and something laughing. I bolted. The gas station replaced the mirror within a few days, a perfectly new, spotless one, but I still refused to go inside that bathroom. A month later, I quit my job. But I still wonder sometimes, what would have happened if I hadn't smashed that mirror? Or worse, what if I had stayed long enough to see what crawled out of it? Thank you for joining me on this terrifying journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Stay tuned for more spine-chilling tales of the paranormal.